Good morning. How's everyone doing? Thank you for being here, Bold Faith. Any new timers, we're glad to have you here with us for Mornings in the Word with Bold Faith Community Church. I'm so excited to have you. Ask that you like this video, share it, and that you subscribe to our channel so that we can reach other amazing women just like you. So today we are on day 135 of the chronological reading plan. We are doing the New Living Translation and we are building a habit, right? That's what it's about, is being in the word so the word can get in us. And the best way to build a habit is like just to be consistent, and getting in it first thing in the morning is an awesome way to build that habit. So without further ado, let's get in the word. Let's see, what's it? 2 Samuel chapter 13. And I will preface this, if anybody's triggered, we will be reading about the rape of Tamar. So if you are sensitive to this topic, sexual assault, just fair warning that is what we will be reading about, and did not want you to be caught off guard or surprised by that. But let's get in the word. Again, I'm Tiana, if I didn't say who I am. I'm your host for today. And we will, again, be reading 2 Samuel chapters 13 through 15 of the New Living Translation. So let's get in the word so the word can get in us. Now, David's son Absalom had a beautiful sister named Tamar, and Amnon, her half brother, fell desperately in love with her. Amnon became so obsessed with Tamar that he became ill. She was a virgin, and Amnon thought he could never have her. But Amnon had a very crafty friend, his cousin Jonadab. He was the son of David's brother Shemaiah. One day, Jonadab said to Amnon, "What's the trouble? Why should the son of a king look so dejected morning after morning?" So Amnon told him, "I am in love with Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister." "Well," Jonadab said, "I'll tell you what to do. Go back to bed and pretend you are ill. When your father comes to see you, ask him to let Tamar come and prepare some food for you. Tell him you'll feel better if she prepares it as you watch and feeds you with her own hands." So Amnon lay down and pretended to be sick. And when the king came to see Amnon, asked him, "Please let my sister Tamar come and cook my favorite dish as I watch. Then I can eat it from her own hands." So David agreed and sent Tamar to Amnon's house to prepare some food for him. When Tamar arrived at Amnon's house, she went to the place where he was lying down so he could watch her mix some dough. Then she baked his favorite dish for him, but when she set the serving tray before him, he refused to eat. "Everyone get out of here," Amnon told his servants. So they all left. Then he said to Tamar, "Now bring the food into my bedroom and feed it to me here." So Tamar took his favorite dish to him, but as she was feeding him, he grabbed her and demanded, "Come to bed with me, my darling sister." "No, my brother," she cried. "Don't be foolish. Don't do this to me. Such wicked things aren't done in Israel. Where could I go in my shame? And you would be called one of the greatest fools in Israel. Please just speak to the king about it and he will let you marry me." And it's just hard reading that, because you just do not have a right to, just because you're in love with somebody or have these strong feelings, to feel like you could devise this whole plan to deceive and take advantage of someone. And then that kind of gives me some wonderings and questions around that whole last part, where basically it's like, don't take advantage of me in this way. Just talk to the king. He will let you marry me. Like, let's do this the right way. So how in love could he have actually been with her, in with her, if he was not even willing to, for one, listen, and to just handle it the right way to begin with? You took false advice from somebody of how you should handle the situation. And it just wasn't right. I mean, so I don't know, but I'm thinking if you were in love with her, then you could have just went through the proper channels to say, to court her, as they used to say back in the day, and do it the right way. But um, seemingly to me, you just caught in lust and you're demanding what you want, and that's just not cool. But let's keep reading. But Amnon wouldn't listen to her, and since he was stronger than she was, he raped her. Then suddenly Amnon's love turned to hate, and he hated her even more than he had loved her. Get out of here, he snarled at her. No, no, Tamar cried. Sending me away now is worse than what you've already done to me. But Amnon wouldn't listen to her. He shouted for his servant and demanded, throw this woman out and lock the door behind her. So the servant put her out and locked the door behind her. She was wearing a long, beautiful robe, as was the custom in those days for the king's virgin daughters. But now Tamar tore her robe and put ashes on her head, and then with her face in her hands, she went away crying. This is so it's just devastating. Like, how do you do that? And your love so quick, like immediately turns to hate. That just speaks to the evil that, in my humble opinion, like really just filled his heart um, for his own evil and his own wicked, sinful discretions. Like, it's you, but now you blame her. You violate her in that way. You take her virginity. You kick her out, and she's left with this shame, and she's begging you, like, don't do this. Like, even with what you did, like don't make it worse by just kicking me out or whatever. So this is just hard. Anyway, verse 20. Her brother Absalom saw her and asked, is it true that Amnon has been with you? Well, my sister, keep quiet for now, since he's your brother. Don't you worry about it. So Tamar lived as a desolate woman in her brother Absalom's house. I mean, we got to keep reading to get the rest of the story. But that even is a trip to me. Like, keep silent. Do not keep silent. And if you or someone has been taken advantage of in this way, say something. Don't let anybody guilt trip you or make you fearful to be in silence against any type of sexual abuse or violation. This is really okay. We're just trying to get through this. Verse 21. When King David heard what had happened, he was very angry. And though Absalom never spoke to Amnon about this, he hated Amnon deeply because of what he had done to his sister. Hey, in the real world, rightfully so. Like, Absalom's revenge on Amnon. Let's just verse 23. 2 years later, when Absalom's sheep were being sheared at Baal Hazor near Ephraim, Absalom invited all the king's sons to come to a feast. He went to the king and said, my sheep shearers are now at work. Would the king and his servants please come to celebrate the occasion with me? The king replied, no, my son. If we all came, we would be too much of a burden on you. Absalom pressed him, but the king would not come, though he gave Absalom his blessing. Well then, Absalom said, if you can't come, how about sending my brother Amnon with us? Why Amnon? The king asked. But Absalom kept on pressing the king until he finally agreed to let all his sons attend, including Amnon. So Absalom prepared a feast fit for a king. Absalom told his men, wait until Amnon gets drunk, then at my signal, kill him. Don't be afraid. I'm the one who has given the command. Take courage and do it. So at Absalom's signal, they murdered Amnon. Then the other sons of the king jumped on their mules and fled. And as they were on the way back to Jerusalem, this report reached David. Absalom has killed all the king's sons. Not one is left alive. The king got up, tore his robe, and threw himself on the ground. His advisors also tore their clothes in horror and sorrow. But just then, Jonadab, the son of David's brother, Shemaiah, arrived and said, no, don't believe that all the king's sons have been killed. It was only Amnon. Absalom has been plotting this ever since Amnon raped his sister Tamar. No, my lord the king, your sons aren't all dead. It was only Amnon. Meanwhile, Absalom escaped. And I will pause right here because I do recall, like a few days ago, like when we were reading about a couple of days ago with David and Bathsheba, how part of his punishment or the judgment that was rendered for his sin was that how it would affect his own household. Like, you killed an innocent man, and so now this sword is never going to leave your house, and it's going to affect your children and the generations to come. So it kind of, what it lets you know is, like, you think you're doing something and you have not counted up the cost, the consequences of what you're doing. And it's like you can make one decision in the heat of a moment or without thinking, or a moment of passion, as the word calls it, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye. And what is it? The lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and what is the pride of life? That's the third one. And just one wrong thing can throw you off like that. And it's just like a rippling effect of years to come, of how that one decision can affect you years to come. And so we see, here's one example of how that happened, of like, he didn't deal with it. It was like, what would have happened if David had dealt with it? We don't see, at least I don't recall seeing in red where he actually dealt with the discretion of what happened and went to Tamar's aid. Like, being angry about something and actually doing something are two different things, right? Let's keep reading. Then the watchman meanwhile, Absalom escaped. This is verse 34. Then the watchman on the Jerusalem wall saw a great crowd coming down the hill on the road from the west. He ran to tell the king, "I see a crowd of people coming from the Horonaim road along the side of the hill." "Look," Jonadab told the king, "there they are now. The king's sons are coming just as I said." They soon arrived, weeping and sobbing, and the king and all his servants wept bitterly with them. And David mourned many days for his son Amnon. Absalom fled to his grandfather, Talmai, son of Ammihud, the king of Geshur. He stayed there in Geshur for 3 days. And King David, now reconciled to Amnon's death, longed to be reunited with his son Absalom. This is some family dysfunction for you. That's all I can say. You think it's just your family with dysfunction. This is a lot of dysfunction going on. 2 Samuel chapter 14. Joab realized how much the king longed to see Absalom. So he sent for a woman from Tekoa who had a reputation for great wisdom. He said to her, "Pretend you are in mourning, wear mourning clothes, and don't put on lotions. Act like a woman who has been mourning for the dead for a long time. Then go to the king and tell him the story I am about to tell you." Then Joab told her what to say. When the woman from Tekoa approached the king, she bowed with her face to the ground in deep respect and cried out, "Oh, king, help me." "What's the trouble?" the king asked. "Alas, I am a widow," she replied. "My husband is dead. My 2 sons had a fight out in the field, and since no one was there to stop it, one of them was killed. Now the rest of the family is demanding, 'Let us have your son. We will execute him for murdering his brother. He doesn't deserve to inherit his family's property. They want to extinguish the only coal I have left, and and his family's property." I'm sorry, let me try that one more time. Verse 7. "Now the rest of the family is demanding, 'Let us have your son. We will execute him for murdering his brother. He doesn't deserve to inherit his family's property. They want to extinguish the only coal I have left, and my husband's name and family will disappear from the face of the earth.' Leave it to me," the king told her. "Go home, and I'll see to it that no one touches him." "Oh, thank you, my lord the king," the woman from Tekoa replied. "If you are criticized for helping me, let the blame fall on me and on my father's house, and let the king and his throne be innocent." "If anyone objects," the king said, "bring him to me. I can assure you he will never harm you again." Then she said, "Please swear to me by the Lord your God that you won't let anyone take vengeance against my son. I want no more bloodshed." "As surely as the Lord lives," he replied, "not a hair on your son's head will be disturbed." "Please allow me to ask one more thing of my lord the king," she said. "Go ahead and speak," he responded. She replied, "Why don't you do as much for the people of God as you have promised to do for me? You have convicted yourself in making this decision because you have refused to bring home your own banished son. All of us must die eventually. Our lives are like water spilled out on the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. But God does not just sweep life away. Instead, he devises ways to bring us back when we have been separated from him. I have come to plead with my Lord the King because people have threatened me. I said to myself, perhaps the King will listen to me and rescue us from those who cut us off from the inheritance. God has given us, yes, my Lord the King will give us peace of mind again. I know that you are like an angel of God in discerning good from evil. May the Lord your God be with you. I must know one thing, the king replied, and tell me the truth. Yes, my lord, the king, she responded. Did Joab put you up to this? And the woman replied, my lord, the king, how can I deny it? Nobody can hide anything from you. Yes, Joab sent me and told me what to say. He did it to place the matter before you in a different light. Let's pause. Isn't this the second time this has had to happen to David from our, reading in the last couple of days? It was like you were oblivious to what you did with Bathsheba, and to Prophet Nathan brought it to your attention. Now Joab is having to use this woman of wisdom from Tekoa to do the exact same thing to bring something to your attention. Like, I really don't know where David, I mean, he's a man after God's own heart, according to the word. But where your mind is, I really do not know. So just like God says that, it's like a restoration, like he goes after what is said. The word says that Jesus left the 99 and went after the ones. This is your own family. So you're not even doing nothing. You're just letting things happen. He out there on a humbug for killing his brother. You did what, you didn't do anything about what happened to Tamar. So I don't know. But David really, you know what? Let's keep reading. Let's just keep reading. So the king said, but you are wise as an angel of God, and you understand everything that happens among us. Verse 21. So the king sent for Joab and told him, all right, go and bring back the young man Absalom. Joab bowed with his face to the ground in deep respect and said, at last I know that I have gained your approval, my lord the king, for you have granted me this request. Then Joab went to Geshur and brought Absalom back to Jerusalem. But the king gave this order, Absalom may go to his own house, but he must never come into my presence. So Absalom did not see the king. Okay. Maybe that was his way of doing something about it. Let's keep reading. Verse 25. Now Absalom was praised as the most handsome man in all Israel. He was flawless from head to foot. He cut his hair only once a year, and then only because it was so heavy. When he weighed it out, it came to 5 pounds. He had 3 sons and 1 daughter. His daughter's name was Tamar, and she was very beautiful. Absalom lived in Jerusalem for 2 years, but he never got to see the king. Then Absalom sent for Joab to ask him to intercede for him, but Joab refused to come. Absalom sent for him a second time, but again Joab refused to come. So Absalom said to his servants, go and set fire to Joab's barley field, the field next to mine. So they set his field on fire as Absalom had commanded. Then Joab came to Absalom at his house and demanded, why did your servant set my field on fire? And Absalom replied, because I wanted you to ask the king why he brought me back from Geshur if he didn't intend to see me. I might as well have stayed there. Let me see the king. If he finds me guilty of anything, then let him kill me. So Joab told the king what Absalom had said. Then at last David summoned Absalom, who came and bowed low before the king, and the king kissed him. So Absalom was reconciled back to David. Thanks for hanging in here with me with this reading. So 2 Samuel chapter 15. After this, Absalom bought a chariot and horses, and he hired 50 bodyguards to run ahead of him. He got up early every morning and went out to the gate of the city. When people brought a case to the king for judgment, Absalom would ask where in Israel they were from, and they would tell him their tribe. And Absalom would say, you've really got a strong case here. It's too bad the king doesn't have anyone to hear it. I wish I were the judge. Then everyone could bring their cases to me for judgment, and I would give them justice. When people tried to bow before him, Absalom wouldn't let them. Instead, he took them by the hand and kissed them. Absalom did this with everyone who came to the king for judgment. And so he stole the hearts of all the people of Israel. I guess with his fine self, he did. because it said he was flawless from head to toe. Let's keep reading. Let's keep reading. After 4 years, Absalom said to the king, "Let me go to Hebron to offer a sacrifice to the Lord and fulfill a vow I made to him. For while your servant was at Geshur and Aram, I promised to sacrifice to the Lord in Hebron, if he would bring me back to Jerusalem." "All right," the king told him, "go and fulfill your vow." So Absalom went to Hebron. But while he was there, he sent secret messengers to all the tribes of Israel to stir up rebellion against the king. "As soon as you hear the ram's horn," his message read, "you are to say, 'Absalom has been crowned king in Hebron.'" He took 200 men from Jerusalem with him as guests, but they knew nothing of his intentions. While Absalom was offering the sacrifices, he sent for Ahithophel, one of David's counselors who lived in Gilgal. Soon many others also joined Absalom, and the conspiracy gained momentum. Verse 13. A messenger soon arrived in Jerusalem to tell David, "All Israel has joined Absalom in a conspiracy against you. Then we must flee at once, or it will be too late." David urged his men, "Hurry, if we get out of the city before Absalom arrives, both we and the city of Jerusalem will be spared from disaster." "We are with you," his advisors replied. "Do what you think is best." So the king and all his household set out at once. He left no one behind except 10 of his concubines to look after the palace. The king and all his people set out on foot, pausing at the last house to let all the king's men move past to lead the way. There were 600 men from Gath who had come with David, along with the king's bodyguard. Then the king turned and said to Ittai, a leader of the men from Gath, "Why are you coming with us? Go on back to King Absalom, for you are a guest in Israel, a foreigner in exile. You arrived only recently, and should I force you today to wander with us? I don't even know where we will go. Go on back and take your kinsman with you, and may the Lord show you his unfailing love and faithfulness." But Ittai said to the king, "I vow by the Lord and by your own life that I will go wherever my lord the king goes, no matter what happens, whether it means life or death." David replied, "All right, come with us." So Ittai and all his men and their families went along. Everyone cried loudly as the king and his followers passed by. They crossed the Kidron Valley and then went out toward the wilderness. Zadok and all the Levites also came along carrying the ark of the covenant of God. They set down the ark of God, and Abiathar offered sacrifices until everyone had passed out of the city. Then the king instructed Zadok to take the ark of God back into the city. "If the Lord sees fit," David said, "he will bring me back to see the ark and the tabernacle again. But if he is through with me, then let him do what seems best to him." The king also told Zadok the priest, "Look, here is my plan. You and Abiathar should return quietly to the city with your son Ahimaaz, and Abiathar's son Jonathan. I will stop at the shallows of the Jordan River and wait there for a report from you." So Zadok and Abiathar took the ark of God back to the city and stayed there. David walked up the road to the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered and his feet were bare as a sign of mourning. And the people who were with him covered their heads and wept as they climbed the hill. When someone told David that his advisor Ahithophel was now backing Absalom, David prayed, "O Lord, let Ahithophel give Absalom foolish advice." When David reached the summit of the Mount of Olives, where people worshiped God, Hushai the Archite was waiting there for him. Hushai had torn his clothing and put dirt on his head as a sign of mourning. But David told him, "If you go with me, you will only be a burden. Return to Jerusalem and tell Absalom, I will now be your advisors, O king, just as I was your father's advisors in the past. Then you can frustrate and counter Ahithophel's advice. Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, will be there. Tell them about the plans being made in the king's palace, and they will send their sons Ahimaaz and Jonathan to tell me what is going on." So David's friend Hushai returned to Jerusalem, getting there just as Absalom arrived. Whew, we did it. We got through 2 Samuel chapters 13 through 15. This one was a tough one, but thank you for being here today. Thank you for getting in your word so that we can just build up this habit of being in his word, even with these hard chapters that may be, triggering or whatever, just hard to get through. So I hope that you have a blessed day. Just this one messed me up, to be honest. So we love you here. Just again, invite someone, like, share, subscribe. Join us back here again for Mornings in the Word, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern, and for Saturday service, which is at 8 a.m. Thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful day.